100 degrees. Okay, now imagine if I was a scientist, yeah? And I thought to myself, if I measure water today, it'll be 100 degrees. But if I measure it tomorrow, it'll be minus 100 degrees. And if I measure it the day after, it'll be minus 1,000 degrees. And if I measure it the day after, it'll be a billion degrees. The fact that I expect as a scientist for there to be the same results today, yesterday, tomorrow, and the day after means I assume that science will operate in the same regular and stable way today as it did yesterday and tomorrow as it did today. Thusly, one may say that stability, regularity, and uniformity are not discoverable by science, but that they are assumptions of science. So when people make the fine-tuning argument and they say, well, there's three options, either it's necessity, chance, or design, I say this is a false thing, because it's not that, you know, you have all these constants, the electromagnetic constant and, you know, so on, and that there are these three options. I'm saying you have uniformity, stability, and regularity, and that those three things, uniformity, regularity, and stability, you can't even do quantum physics without them, without the assumption of them. So if you assume them before you do quantum physics, the question, from whence did they come from? Why is there regularity, stability, and uniformity of nature? How is it explicable that there is uniformity, stability, and regularity of nature? There's only really two options. Option one, that they're explicable by a prepondera of some sorts, an uncaused cause, an independent one, the necessary existence, or that they are self-explicable, meaning that they're necessary themselves. But the category of facts is not, the category of existence is the category of fact, which in this case, these are necessary facts about the universe, it presupposes the category of existence. You can't have 2 + 2 = 4 as a fact before it being existing in some conceptual, universal, whatever realm. Thusly, one may also say you cannot have regularity, stability, and uniformity of nature unless you have some existence that explicates that particular reality. I say that's the necessary existence, without which nothing can be explained. So we can explain, the necessary existence explains everything. It doesn't explain some things. In fact, the thesis, the correct thesis of the necessary existence explains everything. It explains why there is something rather than nothing. It explains why there is regularity, stability, and uniformity of nature. It explains why the universe is not ceasing to exist right now. Why it's perpetually existing. Because it's dependent upon something else which is in perpetuality existing. And thus, I might say, the atheistic option is impossible. An atheist must be ignorant. Either he is deceiving himself, or he is ignorant. There's no third option. The other option may be that he's compoundedly ignorant, so much so that he doesn't know that he's ignorant. That he's convinced himself that he's speaking truth. Tell me what explanation the atheist has for why there is something rather than nothing.
Okay, so most of the time, as you said before, but you don't necessarily like the argument, is relativism. That's the main argument for, because again, relativism kind of cuts through everything. It kind of cuts through logic, it cuts through objectivity, it cuts through any real sense, because it opposes it completely. But again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I mean, look at the world we live in, 2 + 2, as you said, E = 4, it won't equal anything else. But relativism is the main argument.
What relativism are you talking about?
Pure relativism, in the sense of, so I know there's moral relativism,
Yeah.
use that. But I mean relativism in its purest form, in the sense of there are no rules, no up and down, everything applies. Essentially a paradox in itself.
Okay.
Everything exists independently.
Let me ask you a question.
Argument about the human beings, about infinite potential of them being both infinitely good and infinitely bad.
Get me the biggest moral relativist, cultural relativist, skeptic in the world. And let me ask him one question, or you can ask him or her this question yourself. Or make the statement and tell me if they disagree with it. There is no doubt that there is existence. Can anyone refute this statement?
Okay, but I mean, relativism would just argue what's the definition of existence and what the hell is existence.
Being.
Okay, but what is being?
Something.
You say you are being.
Something.
Okay, but then they would ask what is something. Again, definitions is the problem.
There is no doubt there is something.
Okay, but you have to define something.
Okay. So we have to define existence.
Of something. But the thing is, relativists would say something is subjective, and then something can become anything.
I don't know of a single relativist in the literature worth his philosophical stock, merit, that would embarrass themselves enough to refute this statement. You know why? Because the statement, there's no doubt that there is existence, is irrefutable. Anyone who tries to refute it will presuppose existence, because you cannot argue against the existence of existence without having being in existence.
Hence why I say it's a paradox, and hence why I say I am not.
You cannot have paradoxes or contradictions without existence.
Again, but this is why I say an atheist would
Yeah.
argue relativism.
No, they wouldn't, because they would be making a fool out of themselves. If they say life is a contradiction, life is a paradox.
But they would though, because
Let them say it. But a paradox is something. It's not nothing. It's. You can say it's meaningless, but you saying it is something.
A paradox is both something and nothing at the same time. It exists independent between the two. Hence why it's a paradox.
If it's something that cannot come into existence, then it's an impossibility, like a squared circle.
Yeah, I know, but that's why I'm saying atheists would argue relativism.
So we're living a squared circle.
Because you have
Circle.
given a just argument for why God exists. Therefore, for an atheist to argue God doesn't exist, he has to use relativism.
Let me ask you a question. How can an atheist argue with me if they want to throw logic out the window? What tools will you use? If you're saying life is a paradox and that impossibilities are possible, how can you now argue with me when you have basically said we are not going to be using logic? It's like saying this. A child goes into his maths class with a teacher and says, I don't accept any of the mathematical formulas you're talking about. Okay, and then he starts arguing, no, Pythagoras should be this way. Or in fact, the trigonometry should be done that way. You can't make any argument after you've nullified your tools for it. It's like shooting without a gun. It's like you're telling me this. The atheist will shoot you in the head without a gun. I say it's impossible for the atheist to shoot me in the head without a gun, because if there's no gun, he can't shoot me. Likewise, if he gets rid of his own weaponry, in this case, which is the rules of logic and so on, he can't do anything to me. If you don't have logic, you have nothing. You can't make any arguments.
But you argue they would though, because again, you've given a just argument, an objective argument of why God exists.
Okay, I want you to tell me what's wrong with the argument.
No, I don't. Again, I don't really. Like the
So
argument.
why would you? Okay, do you accept the argument?
I accept the argument.
Good. Forget about what the
But at the
atheist.
same time, I don't.
Let me.
Again,
Okay.
it's weird.
Okay. Look.
Because my original question.
Can I be a bit crude? Can I be a bit straightforward and tell you something? Yeah. We're ethnic minorities. Me and you are ethnic minorities. Yeah. Atheists will say things. Usually they'll say things from the West. Richard Dawkins, this person, that person. They can say all kinds of things. Now, what the atheist says is irrelevant if what they are saying does not have any analytic or demonstrative proof. I'm not saying we have this, but because we're ethnic minorities, we think maybe these atheists have something, they're clever people, maybe they're saying something clever. I'm telling you that it doesn't matter. We shouldn't think just because these are white men wearing lab coats or because they're, Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris, let them say what they want. Honestly, they can say whatever they want. If they can't prove it, they can embarrass themselves for all we care. They've come out of vogue now anyway, these atheists, because their arguments have not even kept up with the pace of the philosophical inquiry. Richard Dawkins has been humiliated by Michael Roos, another atheist, who's a philosopher. He calls him like a schoolboy. He says he was a schoolboy. He says, going around saying, who created God? He said, this is embarrassing the atheists. Michael Roos, he said that. So, it doesn't matter what the atheists say, because most of them, they will just say things to try and avoid the incontrovertible fact. It's an incontrovertible fact, which is that in order for there to be anything in existence, there has to be a necessary existence. There cannot be a world in which there's only possible existences or dependent things, depending upon dependent things ad infinitum. That's impossible. That's inexplicable. And so I say, let's put aside what these atheists say. Let's now be sincere about this. Do we really believe? Let's go straight to basics. Could something come from nothing?
Well, again, this is where the whole causality argument comes into play, because arguably you could argue, because certain things happen in a certain way, again, as you said, stability of the universe always happens in that way. No, but if we are to believe there is an infinite potential for causality, then you could also argue then yes, it might happen at a very low statistical probability, but it might actually happen.
So tell me how so tell me how. Okay, so you say it might happen. Give me a scenario where something can come out of nothing, where it's conceivable.
The Big Bang. Most people say the Big Bang.
The Big Bang is not nothing, though, is it? I don't know. No one says that. No, everyone says it's a singularity.
It comes from nothing, though.
No physics textbook in the world will say this.
What's one little thing? You know, when they say something can happen out of nothing, like pure as a. Let's say, for example, if I tell you the dialysis machine, it's a huge machine, right? And the function it does, only very small things for kidney, which is about the size of fava bean. You know fava bean?
Yeah, it's a fool. We have it in Egypt.
And also, it looks like physically, it looks like fava bean. The whole function of the whole dialysis is made by that machine. So if I tell you that the dialysis machine come out of nowhere, and I go in the hospital and say, just like a spontaneous generation like that, will people think I'm the same person? So why the same function done by the little thing, kidney? They say atheists or whatever think it's coming out of nothing without any.
No, but let's forget this. Let's just go straight to basics. If it's conceivable that something can come from nothing, surely there should be some kind of demonstration where that could be the case. Is there any demonstration you can think of, whether it's cosmological, mathematical, or otherwise, where you can show me how 0 plus 0 can equal anything other than 0?
No, but...
Right, so nothing can come from nothing.
Yeah, but then you can just argue maybe someone hasn't lived long enough to eventually see that, or maybe we haven't searched far to see that within the universe, because obviously...
No, it's not about the universe. Listen, 2 plus 2 equals 4. It equaled that before I was born, before you were born, and it will continue equaling that a million years from now. If we lived for eternity, it would still be the same thing. Now, 0 plus 0 is the same thing. It will always equal 0. There's never a change in that.
See, the thing is, this argument eventually comes down to objectivity versus subjectivity. And with that, there is no satisfactory answer. It just loops, because the idiot will always be like, subjectivity, anything can be anything, yada yada yada. And again, society, who favors objectivity and logic, will always argue 2 plus 2 equals 4. And it just continues in a loop, as a paradox, and never really gets anywhere. There's no really
what you're saying to me
well, I do agree with what you say. I do take the objective answer. I'm just playing the devil's advocate.
Okay, we don't need to play devil's advocate, because let me tell you something, right? If you read the greatest minds from the time of Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, all the way through the Enlightenment, all the way through the Renaissance, Descartes, Leibniz, in the Western tradition, in the Eastern tradition, in the medieval tradition, in the Christian tradition, the Jewish Maimonides, Aquinas, Scotus, and so on. This argument that something comes from nothing is not made. It is not. There must be a reason why people don't make this argument. This fool Krauss, Lawrence Krauss, who wrote a book, Something from Nothing, himself, when he was confronted about it, he said, look, what is nothing? Is a quantum field or black hole or something. So that nothing is the absence of something. He doesn't mean that. He doesn't mean that in his book. So because he doesn't mean that, he was even rejected by his own atheist friends. If there was stock in the idea that something can come from nothing, it would be more vehemently made by professional philosophers and analytic thinkers throughout the ages. There is no stock in it. It's mathematically impossible, it's cosmologically impossible, and it is ontologically impossible. Something from nothing comes. Nothing can come from nothing. The universe couldn't have come from nothing, and the universe could not have created itself, because it would have to exist and not exist at the same time.
This is why atheists say who created God?
That's what I'm saying. If we keep saying that, who created the creator, then we're going to have an infinite regress of some sorts. And we're going to have not just an infinite regress of dependent things or causal things, but you're going to have an infinite regress. And even if you say, oh, infinity can exist in the real world, the series of infinite regress itself is dependent because it's composed of parts. So it has to have something outside of it which is independent and explicates it. In this case, it's the necessary existence. There's no, it's the conclusion is inescapable actually. Trust me, but think about it. Okay, think about it. I don't want to pressure you anymore, just think about our discussions. 2 questions I want you to think about. Why is there something rather than nothing? What is the best reason, or what is the best explanation for why there's something rather than nothing?
But then you have to define, okay, no.
Right, got it, yeah? All right. All right, so we'll call it a day, man. Thanks so much, brother. If you need anything, let me know, inshallah, yeah? We'll be here, and if not, you go to Ali, and Ali can get in contact and stuff. But it's a pleasure. No, you're a very clever person, you know, you're very analytic and very critical, but I want you to think about what we talked about. And you look like you've been going to the gym quite a lot, eh? Thank you for playing devil's advocate, you know? I appreciated it, man. Yeah, I don't know. Should we give it to somebody? Yeah. These guys just left us.
They're here.
Oh, they're here. All right, guys, take your microphones, please.